Alright, I wanted to talk about the Void Awakening armor a little bit. I've shown some old videos, but I think there might be some people that may be on the fence on getting it. They look at the info subs and they're like, well, I don't know if I should get it, if I shouldn't get it, how do I use it, and whatnot. Now, I fully understand that to really maximize what I'm about to show you, it's going to be very expensive. So I'm going to go into the Golden Gift Box shops here and just kind of show you some of the items that you're going to need. It's going to cost you several ultra rares. Some people are lucky to get one every now and again. Some people, buy token packages and whatnot, and they just save up. Like I usually try to save up mine during the Black Friday. I think I'm only down to 2 or 3 now, but so if you go through the armor, so the Void Awakening stuff is going to go away next month, I think, or in May. So you have your armor. Okay, so that's one ultra rare right there. You don't need a shield. You're gonna maybe need to use the maybe Tropo Shield. So that's more tokens. And then the spells is where you're really going to end up using the totality of everything. But basically, what you're going to be doing. So this is a spell that you might want to grab, but it's not necessary. I'm not necessarily going to show it off. You have your Summon Creature 72. You're going to need it. I think for any Beastmaster build, it is a must-have. And then you should have. You got your 2 summons. Now, you can actually buy one and swap in the upgrader to the other. I personally grab both. I'm not going to use these guys right now. I think because there's some things about them, they're just not as good. For example, this one right here will regenerate SP based on damage, but it costs SP for upkeep. And then this is the MP version. It costs MP, and then it regens your MP. So they're not really that great. In fact, you would get better luck using Mosquito Guest, or even if you're talking about SP, even the Warpire Batswarm Guest, because it's an MP upkeep, and then it's like 163 SP per landed hit. So if you go with the Celerity turn, it's over 300 SP, assuming that it lands. Those I got them both because I wanted to have them as separate options. I didn't want to swap them. And then Summon Ramsey is going to be in this list. You're going to need to be able to use this guy here. So that's what you've got: your armor, that's 1, your Summon Ramsey 2, then you're going to have your Creature 72 3, and then pets wise, you don't have to have both, but again, you can swap them in the upgrader. I personally got both. I want to use both. I actually use the pets. So you got your SP version and your MP version, and then it'll do a mana barrier and a chi barrier here, as well as regenerate those resources based on damage. So there you go. You've got those. So that's at least one more, if not 2. And then pretty much the misc you're going to be using is Optico, so that's another tokens item. And then you can, if you want to, use like a damaging misc of any kind, some of the general ones. I usually don't run one, but so that's like what, 4 or 5 ultra rares at minimum, plus a couple of token items in Tropo Shield and Optico in order to do this. So this for sure is premium pay to play stuff. So I understand not everybody's gonna be able to do that, but for those that are willing to spend the money and the time and all that kind of stuff. So what I really would like to talk about is, so the Void Awakening full set bonus might very well be the strongest full set bonus ever made. It has a toggle here which locks your attacks to fire, and it's 168% boost. The armor is neutral, which actually will play to your advantage because you're going to use this armor as a Beastmaster. So I'm a lucky Beast Mage, as you can see. So this armor is going to do both be your defensive armor while still doing very good damage, and it's your offensive armor. And that's the value of this armor. Now, if you're going to buy the armor, you need to buy at least the pet. Okay, so and then so we're gonna have Creature 72 out first for this first demo, and then I'll just have the SP version here. Let's see what we got here. So we're just gonna do the barrier mode, and then I am gonna actually use. Really, you only have to use one of two shields. Tropo Shield when you go offense, and Eternal's Champion's Defiance when you go defense for the panic potence. And that's going to be key. Some of this other stuff, you don't even really need it. These are the only two shields you need. I like to use this one for the extra Death Loss and Blind sometimes. And then, depending on how I have my element set up, some shield cakes and stuff. But for this, so you've got your Lucky Strike for your pets here. And then I'm going to go ahead and do this because I'll have Creature 72 out. Let's see. Here we go. It's already on panic mode. And then the weapon I'm going to use is Havarti Blade. If you want to, you could start off doing just a Shadow Feeder. But I usually just run Havarti Blade. Now this is defense mode, so you're going to be inflicting multiple lines of panic, which is going to stack pretty quickly because of the celerity that you're going to be gaining. So Prime Chaos Orb over to a better darkness, so that way you're focusing on defense, and then this guy's on barrier mode. So all you're going to do is attack, and with the offense on 167%, and then the full set bonus increasing the damage of the pet, and if you were to run the guest, which I'm not here obviously, the pet gets 167% increase in damage also. So that's pretty significant. So that means in this bonus, there's a few pets that's got a plus 100%, but some of that's not pretty common. Those usually, they cost you hit points when they implement that feature, but this guy is just a bonus. So and then again, my shield is to help inflict the panic. So what I'm going to do, even though this Havarti Blade is like 20-something% decreased damage, and I'm not using boosters, and it's only 80%, I think it's going to be pretty respectable damage because I'm getting 167% here. But I'm not that worried about it because let's say I'm fighting a higher leveled, more difficult monster than what I'm doing. So that's 300 and something damage, and then so we land that twice, and we got a Lucky Strike on the barrier, and then another Lucky Strike on the barrier. So what we end up with, if you notice, it bugged out. It actually healed me 6 hit points. So what we actually ended up with was 1,255 hit point cheese shield, but the efficiency is what is so insane. So we've got a 0.1228 SP per 1 hit point. So what is it? They have to hit me for 9 or 10 damage just to remove 1 SP. Well, you come over here, and I've already reduced this guy's damage down to 30%. You go a second time, So now its damage is reduced down to 13%. And then, so your efficiency will usually hover between maybe 0.08 to maybe like 0.17, somewhere in there, depending on how you're going. So this is the defensive mode. This is pretty much what I do versus bosses. The new quest, the new April Fool's quest, I pretty much did this to beat Loco. Ended up with over 6,000 total hit point barrier by the end. Loco can't be panicked, so I was just using a different guess in this example. And I still had over 6,000 hit point barrier. And it'll just grow and grow and grow. So, it's to a point right now that it's just, at a 0.15 efficiency, all you have to do is just swap it over, right? And let's say I would attack again here, and then so now you're just healing back your SP. If your SP drops to 0, the whole barrier goes away. So even though this monster would never get through that barrier, all you have to basically do is just click your pet and then just go onto that mode. Same thing happens with the MP version, but instead of a chi barrier, it's an MP barrier. So you can pretty much do the same thing. So in this instance, we're going to probably have a little bit more difficulty hitting the monster. So let's go ahead and do that. And then let's go ahead. So we're going to keep with this. So in this instance, I'm going to go ahead and use the MP version. One thing about these two pets is if you click on barrier mode on one, it shares the toggle with the other, so you don't have to guess or click through until you figure it out. So didn't land any panics there, and then the MP barrier got basically eaten through. He only hit me for 44. So see what happens here. So we have a panic that's just at 806. So in this instance, it's just having a difficult time hitting this monster. And it's in this mode now where it's going to be very, very difficult to hit because of this feature here. And I'm not carrying auto hit or nothing like that. So I've got damage down to 64, and then my mana shield, if you look at the efficiency, it's 0.16 for every 1 hit point. So it pretty much works the same. I don't know how hard this guy's going to hit me. It might hit me hard enough to get through this barrier, but we'll see what happens here. Or I ended up landing some hits, so it doesn't matter. So as you can see, it's just lower and lower damage and higher barriers. If you want to just, now I've got a mana barrier. Now if I want to just start adding a chi barrier, now we've got 2 different barriers listed. And I'm not real sure how it decides which one to tear down first. Maybe it's the last one inflicted. I'm not real sure. But in this one, let's see what happens here. When you're listing the 2 different barriers, you're pretty invincible at this point. Especially now that we have the monster damage down to 12%. So basically, if it would have normally hit me for 100, now it's only going to hit me for 12. But with my efficiency, it may not actually do any damage to me. And then, like I said, because of the Firelock 167% damage toggle, I'm doing respectable damage considering how defensive I'm playing. And then I'm using Havarti Blade just to trigger some celerities, just to drive this damage is now down to 0.04%. It can't shake this because it's a negative 10 penalty built in, and I have another 20 potence here and another 10 potence here. So that's basically like 40 points of potence. And that's not even counting the charisma. So that's another 20 points of potence there just because of its charisma versus charisma. Most of these monsters aren't going to get through this kind of stuff. That's why I'm able to just basically get through these monsters like, like they're level 5 monsters. Now, one thing you can do is once you start getting your monster offense down far enough, and then you get your barriers up. Let's see here. So hopefully we get some panics going, some lucky strikes on this. It might get through here, yeah. It's eating through my hit points here. I might end up dying here. Let's see what happens. Maybe not. Maybe not now. Part of the issue here is it's got low resistances. So that is one monster type that you will struggle against. So now we're starting to maybe see a little bit. Now I'm starting to get damage down to 40%. And my chi shield is just 431. So at this point, I'll probably start to turn this battle around. But I was going to say, with these resistances so low, monsters with low resistance is the one type of monster where your panic is, because it's scaling up based on darkness. That is the one type of monster that you're going to need to be a little bit careful with. And so this was a pretty good example of the one kind of monster that this defensive playstyle you might struggle with a little bit. Now, what I'm going to do here, if it'll last long enough, we'll see if it lasts long enough. Alright, let's just do this. So you can do one of two strategies. You could either just play defensively the whole time, or you could play defensively for a couple of rounds, get your barriers up, get your monster offense nerfed, and then swap to offense, which isn't necessary. I mean, a lot of these monsters are pretty weak nowadays compared to player power. Or what you could do is then swap over to your damaging setup. So what you're going to do, because you have luck, you're going to increase your lucky strike rate by 43%. So now you're at 53%, and then this is where this comes in handy. That will now double to automatic lucky strikes. And then your Ramsey for magic weapons, it's plus 61%, which, if you remember, we're already at plus 67% here. And then what we're going to do is, there's no need for celerity on boosters. We're going to switch to a more offensive weapon. Now, I'm not carrying technically an offensive weapon here. All of these weapons take damage off to inflict effects, pretty much. Except this guy, unless you go to blind mode. So I'll leave it off of blind mode. It should just be normal damage. And the one I want to showcase here is just the actual damage here on this stack. 2,400 and 923, so that's over 3,000 damage. So let's see if we can manage to... I don't have a damaging misc on me, but maybe this will just substitute for it if it passes. Let's see here. So this will be guaranteed lucky strikes for the next 3 rounds. So basically from 8,000 damage down to 673. So this is what I mean by people look at the armor and they see that it's a neutral lean and they're like, I'm not going to touch it. Well, that's fine. You just don't understand that even though this is neutral, you're getting Firelock, Ellie Comp, Plus, with this booster setup, you're 1 to 2 rounding 95% of the game. As long as you can get your fire element to a decent number there. So it really kind of is a farming setup too. So this guy's got 12,973 hit points. So that failed. So let's find out how many rounds it takes for me to squash that. It's going to be 2 or 3. So I'm just playing the offensive way. So most likely the next round I'll go ahead and win this. Unless I miss like I did there on the first one. Oh. Alright. Now one thing that I like to personally do, and this is what the last thing I'll show off. Let's see here. Actually, let me just skip my turn. This guy's gonna hit pretty hard too. Alright, so I like to use Alchemical Unity and reduce my damage even on offensive mode. So what you just saw against that Frost Giant was he blew me up because he's a hard-hitting monster, and I was just trying to go pure offense with no regard to defense. So what I like to do instead is not even go pure offense. I like to put on blind mode here, or I'll use like a panic weapon, and then I'll still be able to do pretty decent damage, but then I'm inflicting some blinds that as sort of a safety net. So even though I'm still able to do pretty good damage, even though with Alchemical Unity's reduced damage on a blind. So here's another example here. So so instead of going pure offense and just trying to go all out with that, so now what I'm going to do is just use the blind mode, make sure I get lucky strikes, and then his MRM is pretty low, and then I should be able to inflict some blinds here. They're pretty sick. 137.4. He's not going to be able to hit me. As you can see, now I'm up to 233. So even though I've got reduced damage, it's still very good. 326 blind. I mean, all you need is about 90 really. So this kind of worked out really well because I wanted to showcase how you can use the same armor, just change out your pet and guest, and get pretty good results both playing the offensive style and defensive style. So you're just going to prime Chaos Orb and basically get fire to your favorable number, and then you should be able to get some good blinds. And even though, like right now, even though I had a reduced damage because it's on blind mode, I still was able to one-shot this monster. So the totality of the different items, you could literally play most of this game just changing your offensive and defensive playstyle, but use the same armor every battle, and you'll be fine. Like I said, I beat the Loco in the latest April Fool's Quest doing this pretty easily. In fact, I know it's not the quote-unquote unbeatable version, but it is a bit of a pain in the ass monster. It does take a little bit, but I find doing that better than trying to do like baby egg type stuff. So I just want to show off sort of the value of the armor for beast builds, and that just the one armor with some other pay-to-play items, it's your defensive and your offensive setup all in one. You're just changing out your pets and guests. But anyway, that's all I had for this video.